Hello, I'm Katie, and I'm one of the product experts here at Serif. Version 2 of the Affinity Suite has now been released, and there are lots of exciting upgrades and improvements to share with you, as well as some highly requested new features across Designer, Photo, and Publisher. I'm here today to share with you the advancements that have been made in the iPad suite, and to introduce you to our new iPad app, Affinity Publisher for iPad. Let's take a look. When you open the app, you'll see that the live doc view from Designer and Photo has had a revamp. We now have tabs to the side so that we can open documents, view samples, and start setting up new documents with a single tap. In the new document dialog, the presets have been slimmed down and are now presented in a single list in their categories. In response to feedback, we've also added a new category containing some common sizes used in architectural workflows. Just like on the desktop apps, you can now add your own categories for presets that you create. And you can rename, reorder, or delete the default presets. Our UI developers have managed to offer all the document settings that are available to you on the desktop across these general and margin and bleed tabs. In the Live Docs tab, swipe left to rename, duplicate, or save a document, or tap the X in the corner to quickly close it once you've finished with it. The M at the end of the title informs you that the live document has been modified since it was last saved, letting you know that you might want to save it before you close it if you want to keep the changes. Let's open this document that I've been working on. All of the Affinity apps have been given new iconography, and the menus and panels have had a revamp. The context toolbar is now out of the workspace along the top of the screen, with similar operations being grouped into flyouts like ordering, flip and rotate, alignment options, Boolean operations, and selecting. Select Same and Object are easier to access too. Always present to the side of the context toolbar are viewing options, preview and guides, and snapping, now with snapping options. The Layers panel has been given a lot of new functionality. In V2, it has clearer drop zones for reordering, masking and clipping, and new icons to denote the layer types like frame text, picture frames, shapes, and pixel layers, and so on. All of the panels relating to text settings have been consolidated into a single text panel of most used features, with flyouts to take you to the rest of the settings. There is a new icon in the bottom left, and this toggles the brand new command controller on and off, but I'll show you a little bit more about that later. Also, there's now a quick menu that can be accessed with a long press or a 3-finger swipe down, and this contains frequently used operations like duplicate, copy, paste, delete, and things like grouping and rasterizing can be done from here too. As with Designer and Photo, we have the Tooltips button in the corner to tell you where everything is. Even though we're working on an iPad, this is by no means a light version of Publisher. It has powerful features from version 1 that you may be familiar with. Smart master pages and text wrapping are smooth and rapid. Let me show you how they look. I'll open the Pages panel and I'll move across to view the master pages. Here I've designed 3 different layouts of master pages with picture frames and text frames. I'll move back to the pages and select pages 2 and 3 that I want to test my different master page layouts on. Just like the desktop version, I can drag them out over the page to see an instant preview of how it would look with that master page's layout. Text wrapping is also very easy and satisfying on the iPad. On this page, I have 2 linked text frames and a cutout of an elephant. When applying text wrap settings, it's important to apply them to the object, not to the text frame. So I will tap on the elephant with the Move tool to select it, and tap the 3 dots and choose Text Wrapping. I'll select the Tight Wrap options, and the text now wraps around the edge of the elephant. If I move the elephant around, the text reacts quickly and smoothly. Publisher iPad even supports fully customizable text wrapping, allowing you to create unique text wraps. This jellyfish image is not a cutout, so the text wrap styles won't work. If I select the image and choose Tight, The text is attempting to wrap around the edge of the image, so I need to create a custom wrap outline. I'll tap Wrap Outline, and to begin with, it's used the edge of the image as a starting point. I can reshape the edge by moving and editing the nodes. The wrap nodes use the same behaviour as the pen tool, so I can create and edit nodes as if I were drawing with the pen tool. Now, like the elephant, the text is responding to the position of the jellyfish. Next, I'll show you a publisher feature that's brand new in V2. Autoflow automatically populates a layout with placed images. If you've selected more images than will fit in your layout, the configuration will be repeated to accommodate all the images that you've selected to place. Let's see how it works. I've set up pages 10 and 11 for a spread of competition entries. I've created 20 picture frames to place the entry images into. I'll tap the Place tool and select Place from File. Now I'll select all the images in the competition folder. Remember how my layout had 20 picture frames? There's 40 selected here. I'll tap Open to bring them all onto the Place Object panel. Now I can tap individual images to choose which one to place next, or enable multi-select to select specific ones. Watch what happens when I select all of them and tap the first picture frame. Not only has it populated all 20 picture frames immediately, but it has also duplicated the layout and continued to place the rest of the images. Autoflow can be used for more than just images. It also works for text and PDF documents too. One of the most exciting things about Publisher finally coming to iPad is that we can now work between all three apps through Studio Link. If you own Publisher, Designer and Photo and have them all installed on your iPad, you can access tools from the Designer and Photo personas within Publisher. To switch personas, tap on the Publisher icon and select Photo. Now my Tools panel has changed, and we can see raster-based tools like the Paintbrush and Erase Brush tools. On the right, we have image editing panels like Filters and the Channels panel. If I tap the Photo icon and choose Designer, I can access the vector tools from the main Designer persona. Here are some familiar tools like the pen, pencil and corner tools, and also some new faces too. We'll come back to these in a while. For anyone used to working on desktop, tools like these are typically used alongside keyboard modifiers, like holding Shift to constrain proportions when you drag out a shape. To ease the transition of working between iPad and desktop, and to give iPad users more control, all three apps now have access to keyboard modifiers through the command controller. It will appear in the bottom left by default, to be used by the left hand, and it can be toggled on and off with the button on the Tools panel. However, if you're left-handed, you might prefer to have the command controller on the right side to use with your right hand. If you'd like to move it, just perform a long press with your finger on the command controller until it starts moving, and drag it to a new area on your workspace. If I tap the center button, we can see Shift, Command, Option and Control. I can tap a modifier to lock it on, and it will stay on until I turn it off. For example, if I lock Shift on, I can drag out a triangle with constrained proportions and rotate it locked to 15-degree increments. When I'm finished, I can tap it to turn it off. Another option you have is to hold it whilst you're working. To do this, hold the center button and move it before it has time to start pulsing. Now the keyboard modifier is engaged until you release your finger, and you can move it to other modifiers too. I'll pull the center button over Shift to constrain proportions while I drag out a triangle, and then move it over Command to duplicate it. I'll just use the two-finger tap gesture to undo. For those who are wondering, the command controller has not replaced regular gestures. Those still work too, if that's your preferred working method. Now, whilst I've been speaking, you might have noticed some new icons on the Tools panel. Designer has been given some powerful new features. I'm going to show you the Shape Builder, Knife Tool and Vector Warp. On this page, we're going to create an advert for a new brand of water. We're going to use the Shape Builder tool and the Knife tool to do this. Then I'll show you how you can warp your vector objects to create a realistic mock-up. First, we'll make a logo for the brand. I'm really liking these jagged triangle shapes in the glaciers in the background, so we'll use this as an inspiration for our logo. We'll get the triangle tool and use Shift on the command controller to drag out a triangle. Next, I'll switch to the Move tool and keep my finger over Shift to rotate it by 30 degrees. Now I'll move my finger over the Command modifier to duplicate it, and back to Shift to rotate it a little more. I'll power duplicate it, so I'll long press inner space to bring up the quick menu, and select Duplicate to power duplicate the third triangle with the same transform information that I performed on the second triangle. Now I'll add a rectangle, so I'll tap the Triangle tool and choose the Rectangle tool, and position it towards the bottom. Now I'll use the Move tool to select everything, and use the Shape Builder tool to add and subtract from the shapes to build the logo. There are two ways we can do this. I can select the areas first and choose to add or subtract them on the context toolbar like this. I'll just two-finger tap to undo back to the start. The other option is to pre-select the add or subtract action, and then the operation is performed immediately after you've finished selecting the area. Whichever way you choose to work is entirely up to you. Let's add a nice gradient to the shape that we've created. I'll select the Fill tool and drag it across the shape, and choose some cool toned colours from the colour panel. I think I'll go for a pastel pink, and maybe a blue. For blue, I think I'll use the colour picker and choose one of the icy blues from the image. And I'll just adjust the gradient slightly. Now let's add some text. I'll use the Artistic Text tool and drag out an approximate size. The brand is going to be called Glacial, so I'll type that in. And I think we'll change the font. I have a particular font in mind, so I'll just search for it in the search bar. Let's make it white. I'll also add a tagline. Here's one I made earlier. I'll just move it under the brand name and resize it. Now let's really lean into these jagged edges with the knife tool. I'll select it and select the logo. I can drag to freehand slice the shape up, but it might look a bit wobbly. There are stabilizer options on the context toolbar to help you get cleaner cuts, and a slider to determine the length of the pull. It's getting better, but if you'd like a perfectly straight line, you could use the Control keyboard modifier on the command controller. You could also use the straight line mode on the context toolbar. Let's use the Move tool to resize the logo, holding Shift on the command controller to keep it in proportion, and position it just over the brand name. I'll also separate the sections slightly. I'm holding Shift on the command controller to lock the Y coordinates and keep them in line. The knife tool works on curves and shapes, but it also slices text. Let's use the knife tool to slice through the brand name. Text doesn't need to be converted to curves in order to be affected by the knife tool. Once cut, it will automatically convert to curves and place them in a group. Let's go into this group and transform the upper curves slightly. Now we've made our branding, let's add it to the bottle. I'll start by selecting everything and holding Command to duplicate it all and move it over the bottle and group them together. Now I can show you another new feature, Vector Warp. With the group selected, I'll tap back into the group options and create a mesh group. Now I can drag the nodes around to warp my vector objects smoothly and cleanly, without having to rasterize or compromise on quality. You can drag to select multiple nodes, or move handles as you would do when editing any vector curves. And best of all, it's completely non-destructive, as I can drag my original group back out of the warp group, and it is as it was before. Now to save time, I've already created a warp group around the bottle to drop my objects into. So I'll hold the group layer and drag it into the already warped label group. I just love how it looks when moving through the warp. And it's great that once it's set up, you can switch it out with other brands in the future, or amend your current brand without having to start from scratch. Designer's not the only one getting a non-destructive warp. Photo now has a live mesh warp for warping raster objects non-destructively. I'll show you how to create some mock-ups using the live mesh warp. So the aim of this page is to encourage people to subscribe to this wildlife magazine, and we want to show a preview of the next issue. A page like this would typically be present in every issue, so this new feature will really help speed up editing. First, I'm going to create a picture frame, so I need to move into the publisher persona. Then I'm going to move into the photo persona. With the picture frame selected, I'll open the filters panel and toggle across to live versions of the filters. I'll scroll down until I find Live Mesh Warp and tap to apply it to the picture frame. Now I'll reposition the nodes and handles to line the picture frame up with the page mockup. This Live Mesh Warp uses the same behaviours as the handles to reshape sharp corners, so you can edit the mesh warp to fit just about any space that you might need. I'll just fine-tune it a little bit closer to the edges of the page. When it's in position, I can introduce an image from the next issue. I'll move back to the publisher persona and select Place and Place from File. Find my image and tap on the picture frame to place it on the page. Here you can see it's nicely warped around the page. As I mentioned before, this is non-destructive, so if I go into the Layers panel, I can turn off the mesh warp and view the unwarped picture frame. I can also switch out the image for future editions. I'll delete the image and repeat the Place Image process. This time I'll select a different image and tap on the page to replace it. I've really enjoyed playing around with this feature, so here's another example. This time I want to create a charity mug mockup. I've already created a live mesh warp on my picture frame, and I'm simply going to long press to duplicate the background image, resize it, and position it over the mug. I'll move the image layer into the picture frame, and it's as simple as that. I can even pop preview mode on to see the final look. Another hugely powerful feature that's been introduced to Photo is live mask layers. These are 3 live masks including hue range, luminosity and bandpass. These masks are automatically generated from your image based on particular criteria, and they can be applied to single images or used in conjunction with macros. Let's take a look at the hue range live mask. So this article is about birds during the winter, but one of these images has a green background and looks a bit like it's taken in spring. We can use a hue range live mask to tone the green down without affecting the colour of the bird. First, I'll select the image layer and then move to the photo persona. I'll add a black and white adjustment from the Adjustments panel. Then I'll go back to the Layers panel and press the plus icon to add a new layer. Here we can find the 3 new live mask layers. I'll select the Hue Live Mask layer. The mask is automatically generated to hide the pixels within the colour ranges on the colour wheel. I'll just adjust the nodes to mop up some of the background pixels and try and extend the mask over the branch. Now the black and white adjustment is being masked to the background and revealing the bird. The final feature that I'm going to show you today is one that's shared between all 3 apps. Layer effects can be applied to objects, images, curves and text. And now you can add multiple layer effects of the same type. Previously, only one of each layer effect could be used at a time. But if we select this circle and open the Layer Effects panel, we now have a plus icon so we can add more. I'll pop an outline on it first of all. Now I'll add another outline and make this one black. The colour can be changed on the context toolbar. I'll drag down on the workspace to increase the size of the outline. Let's add a third outline and make this one white. I'm not really keen on this look, so I can hide the third outline, or I could delete it by tapping the bin icon. Layer effects can be copied and pasted to other objects through the new Quick menu. I'll select the circle and long press to bring up the Quick menu, and tap Copy. Then I'll select the other 2 circles by holding the Command controller over Shift whilst I tap them, then long press again and rather than choose Paste, which will paste a new object, I'll tap Paste Style. Paste Style also works for fill and outline colours. I'll quickly show you on these header circles. I'll long press and copy the first circle, then use Shift to select the others. I'll long press again and tap Paste Style. And it can even be used to paste text attributes as well. I'll repeat these steps again to copy the text attributes. Whilst we've had a look at the new publisher for iPad and some of the new features, I'd like to point out that this is not an exhaustive list of new tools and functionality. There are more features that will be covered by my colleagues in other What's New videos, specifically for Designer, Photo and Publisher. And we have a growing collection of tutorial videos on each app's YouTube channel. So for now, from me, thanks for watching.